West to East podcast. This is it. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Mnemo. Here we put the ass in astronomical by discussing ancient texts and creation myths, translating them into past astronomical terraformation events and historical cosmic cycles. I should note that most of what I discuss here today is theologically, scientifically, and astrophysically heretical for now. Welcome to episode 5, the sixth day. And you might be wondering why I didn't start with Genesis 1. I realized while dissecting Genesis 2, 3, and 4 that these stories are running parallel together and they're describing similar events. So Genesis 1 is episode 5. And that's going to be important for later. So I did chapters 2 through 4. We're doing chapters 1, or just chapter 1. I'm excited to do this one. I'm excited to share this with you. I feel like I get to tell you these crazy biblical secrets that nobody really knows or talks about, discussing it, which I think we should be. It's fun. Genesis 1 does not contain near the amount of allegory and symbolism as the other chapters. It's actually more like a sped up, broader version of Genesis 2 and 3, but it runs simultaneous to Adam and Eve and the Galaxy of Eden events. If you happen to be new here, I recommend starting at episode 1 and listening in order just for the context. It's really helpful for the context. To give you a bit of context, a long time ago, Earth went through a massive worldwide cataclysm, creation cycle 2. And the people who survived it, the Mnemonites, hid the information and stories for us so that we could survive the next creation cycle. That's the context. If you need more, please see my other episodes. We're jumping right in today, starting with verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So this context, this initial context, starts us off at the midpoint of creation cycle 2. So this is kind of the same time that the Adam and Eve story begin at as well. There's no axial rotation happening because there's no atmosphere, and there's a really interesting relationship between the Earth's axis and how it spins on its axis and the formation and stabilization of the atmosphere. Look it up. It is fascinating. So when they say that the earth was without form and void, that's what they mean. A lack of atmosphere is going to make the earth appear like the moon does. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere and it looks really dark and sort of black and white. So that's what the earth looked like. All references to God here in this telling are references to the sun. That is same as Genesis chapter 2 and 3. When they say that God hovers, it's because the sun is levitating, like Dua Lipa. I don't think I can sing her song on here, but I would have sang for you guys if she wouldn't have sued me for it. And you know she would have. So Earth without axial rotation or atmosphere to diffuse the solar radiation is overexposed to the sun while held in its Uranian orbit. How do I know Earth was orbiting another planet? Please review episode 1. Moving to verses 3 and 5. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and morning the first day. So, The effect of the sun on the earth while it has no atmosphere would mean the oceans were exploding upwards and boiling off because the sun is hot. So the oceans exploding allowed for small particles to make it into the upper location of Earth's atmosphere, and once formed, the atmosphere allowed for light dispersion and the perception of color. So oceanic boil-off would probably be like massive explosions out of the oceans because of no atmosphere, and the sun is hot. Remember it. There's going to be a test later. God saying, "Let there be light," was how the Mnemonides indicated that the sun assisted with the formation of the atmosphere by boiling off the oceans. Once the atmosphere was established, the perception of color, sound, and being able to see out into space are all possible. Again, without an atmosphere, if Earth looks like the moon, imagine what looking out from the moon looks like. There isn't an atmosphere to diffuse the light, so it's really hard to see the stars while you're on the moon. So, because the sun is so bright, he is an indicator of daytime, and because he indicates daytime, he automatically separates the day from night. So, here we already have the start of the implementation of the day and night cycle. This is the very, very first day of it, day 1. Which indicates to us that the decoupling event, when Earth was pulled away out of its Uranian orbit, that decoupling event has already occurred. And so day 1 was called and referenced by the Mnemonides as Enoch. And it lasted approximately 77 cycles of Mnemonide time. They say in the Bible years, 77 years in Genesis chapter 4. However, because their time would have been totally messed up from this event, it's hard to say exactly how long this day really was. So we just say 77 cycles because we can't know for sure how long that was. So think about that. A day lasting about the same length as your life. Your whole life spent in one sky with very little variance. You go to sleep with the sun in the same spot and you wake up again right where you left it. That'd be crazy. That might drive me crazy. I wonder if it drove them crazy. They were probably used to it. They're like, oh, that sun's just still there, just hanging out. It's bright as heck, boiling the oceans. Anyways, so the decoupling event was day 0. Now Earth is stabilizing in its new orbit on day 1/Enoch. And coincidentally, Enoch rhymes with epoch. So the days that the Mnemonides are describing are closer to an era or 1,000 years than what we think of as like a 24-hour day. And even the Hebrew translation of the word day, yom, it's straight up called yom. In Hebrew, it accounts for that context as well. It has a triple meaning or a tri-meaning, tri-definition, triple definition, tri-definement. I'm done. Also, when you hear me say, and God saw that it was good, the Mnemonides imply here that the sun is always seeing, always watching, unblinking. I blinked at you, just with one eye though. Next verses 6 through 8. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning the second day." This is the creation of the water canopy that enclosed the atmosphere. That water canopy was part of the reason for the Great Flood, which I will address in another episode. Think of the atmosphere as sort of a dusty force field around Earth, the man of dust. A water canopy is like a super thin glacier or ice pieces that surround the atmosphere in like a thin crystal snowy ball. So there was water above, water below. And how did God / the sun separate these waters? The way the sun was rising in the sky made it appear like he separated above and below. They indicate that the first day Enoch has now passed, which means the first night, Lamech, 777 cycles, has also passed. The second day was referred to as Enosh. And hopefully you recognize these names from the Genesis genealogies. The genealogical information was how they kept the correct order of sequential events. They weren't human genealogies. And these stories of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, are how they described the happening and details of the events. So, moving to next verse. Verses 9 and 10. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas, and God saw that it was good. There goes that sun, seeing stuff again. So as I mentioned earlier, a lack of atmosphere causes the oceans to explosively boil off, and that boil off causes fog and mist to hover over the land parts of Earth. So there's a great deal of moisture in the air, and it's hard to see through all of that fog or any great distance. So the coolness of the night passing, Lamech, the first night, made all that moisture drop to the ground. It's possible that there was an ice age because it was 777 cycles of night. So since the first day Enoch lasted approximately 77 years or cycles, we must assume the second day Enosh lasted about that long or a little less due to the Earth's rotational velocity increasing. And it sounds like it might even be spinning unevenly if night lasted that long at first. So we're moving to the third day now, and the days are gradually getting shorter. Verses 11 through 13, and God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind on earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning the third day. The atmosphere plus water canopy brings abundance to every level of nature on earth. So the atmosphere allows for vegetation and seed cycles to flourish. And these seeds were likely preserved in permafrost. They were probably just frozen until the sun came and explosively boiled them out of the ice. And the moisture that was held in by the water canopy allows for higher oxygen levels to establish, eventually bringing about megafauna. And this is the time period or era or age that the dinosaurs began to dominate nature as well. Research indicates to me that the third day's name is actually called Noah. And I'm going to do a Noah episode. And that might seem confusing, but if you have patience and wait till I drop the Noah episode, I will readdress this postulation. But the third day is called Noah. Continuing. Verses 14 and 15. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. Since the atmosphere made it easier to see the stars and understand the updated celestial mechanics, the Mnemonides began to organize and notate new temporal markers. And what I mean by that is, since humanity was sort of coming out of hiding from this apocalypse, they're slowly getting out of cave living and getting back onto surface living. The Mnemonites had to reorganize how they acknowledged and reference cycles and periods of time. For example, a month in Mnemonite time might look like only a week in modern time. We don't know for sure. So day 4 had new temporal markers established, and seasonal cycles were recognized as inevitable due to the day-night cycle. Verses 16 through 19. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the 4th day. I do not know what the name of the 4th day's name is. So Earth has become a stellar satellite, and the sun rules the day and the moon rules the night. And here is it seems like the final sort of establishment of the day-night cycle, or it's finally sped up enough to a point where it is predictable or stable is maybe a better term. So this may have even been, at this point, day 4. Day 4 may have been the first time that they saw or noticed the moon in all of these events happening. The moon could have been an entirely new addition to Earth. It could have been the first time they'd seen the moon in generations. Maybe they knew it was there and just hadn't seen it in a while. But it was important to note, and it worked out well for the story and how they preserved these events in this story. Verses 20 through 23. And God said, let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens. So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. There isn't a name for the 5th day either. I will keep my eyes open though. The Mnemonites here were indicating that sea life also thrives with an established atmosphere and water canopy, causes creature kind to increase. Sea life and bird kind flourished a little bit ahead of land creatures, it sounds like, from this record. And now we have biblical proof for a type of evolution that occurs after a cataclysm. Since the day-night cycle was a brand new environment, the creatures that survived had to adapt to it, and this physiologically would have changed them. Evolution is in the Bible. Verses 24 through 25. And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Now that we have the land creatures coming out of hiding, it's possible they were hidden underground with the Mnemonites. I have postulated that the Mnemonites pulled a Noah's Ark type of move and hid as many animals as they could before the fallout of all of these events. And they likely kept and bred them in captivity to preserve the general ecosystem of their diet. So, Mnemonites would have kept some animals within their community alive during this time. It also seems likely that there were some wild animals that managed to survive on their own during the cataclysm. It could have been like they might have migrated or chased the light, tried to stay in that midpoint between the darkness and the light. It might have been something like that. They probably instinctually knew what to do during that time. When they say God made, They mean God, the sun, made it possible because the sun rules our solar system. But they're not trying to say that the sun like used his hands to make animals or anything like that. Yeah, there's no talking snakes in this story. But if you see one, you've got to tell me. Moving on. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. I love this part. This is my favorite part of the whole episode. Writing it was so fun. Okay, so last but certainly, you can't even talk. So excited. Last but certainly not least, we arrive at what mankind, humanity, the Mnemonites were actually up to during all of these events. And first, I need to tangent here and point out that days 1 through 5 have all been gradual evolutionary progressions of change. Survival occurs incrementally and not all at once. The length of these days the Mnemonites were experiencing, as I said, was closer to an era than a 24-hour day. And I want you to keep that in mind for this next part. We have to assume that these surviving humans, Mnemonites, were living underground, since that would have been the only viable option that led to survival. So, the atmosphere formation allows for them to come above ground again, and as I stated in episode 2, the Mnemonites created a ritual to honor the atmosphere's union to Earth. That ritual was marriage. Stay with me. So the atmosphere formation allowed the Mnemonites to pursue long-term mating strategies as offspring survival increased. So their babies are the babies that they're having are surviving, more of them are surviving, and they're surviving until adulthood. Sometimes when times are hard, there's famine, the babies just don't make it because there's so much stress within the general community. Prior to the atmosphere, and prior even to creation cycle 2, the Mnemonites were experiencing a sky that did not change quickly, and it didn't have the same variance that we have today in our sky. They didn't have day and night like we do, so they would have had massive physiological differences compared to us humans today. Maybe you can guess where I'm going with this. So they would have been physically different from us because the conditions that they had to survive in were different than what we experience today. Those physiological differences would have been things like circadian rhythm. They would have slept differently, if at all. And because they didn't have day and night, the sun/God wasn't going down and coming up like it does now. They would have had different lengths of pregnancy and gestational development because they did not receive the same amount of solar radiation that we do from the sun today. And I'm so excited. I hope you guys believe me because this shit is crazy. Last but not least, the Mnemonites were all hermaphrodites. They were of one sex. They were reproducing out of one sex. They did not have males or females like we do. They were a single gendered society until Earth went from being a Uranian moon to a planet directly revolving the sun. The polarity of the day-night cycle evolutionarily split the Mnemonites into two sexes to survive. So here we have a historical reference for the splitting of the sexes when humans began to be born male and female. This is so exciting. I wonder what you guys think. I hope your minds are blown. So it's wild. This is wild. Humans used to all have it both or have neither. I'm not really sure. Can you believe that though? The conditions on Earth were so catastrophic and variable and uncertain that mankind evolved to have engendered men and women. Before that, everyone else's junk was the same. I wonder what they looked like. I wonder if they had breast tissue, or if I wonder if they were taller. They probably were taller. The what do you call it? The water canopy would have likely allowed for the humans to get taller. Um, I'm gonna do an episode on that too. I'm gonna start talking about how the Nephilim came about too. So stay tuned. I'm gonna just expose every biblical secret that you guys want to know. I promise. I'm gonna do it. So we have a historical reference point for when humanity had only one gender and began marriage. We have two historical reference points, and it's crazy, but we gotta finish. Verses 28 through 30, and God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life. I have given every green plant for food. So mankind now sexually reflects the same polarity that the earth experiences, and it sounds like this change was experienced as like a good thing or like an abundant thing. So they saw the new sun as a benevolent force, and that brought daylight and abundance. They could walk the surface of the earth again and eat fresh food. That would have been a massive change. Their vitamin C levels would have been really good. And it is likely that the Nemanites had survived underground eating fungi for so long that they didn't have much food variance. So that being able to go out and pick off trees would have been a massive change for them. So the Nemanites get to kind of stop living in survival mode. They get to be a bipolar sex race. And now they could do things like build societies. They could go tame animals. They could procreate. They could think about and do things that they liked. They could explore. They could find new food, new animals, set up rituals to, out of gratitude. It sounds like that's what marriage was. And most importantly, they still and would continue to tell stories about what happened to them. So, last verse. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. I love these stories. It's crazy how much is going on in the cosmos overhead, in the sky, in the stars, and how deeply it affects human activity. At a DNA level, we, as a multi-gendered species, always reflect the current cosmic conditions. Our DNA is designed to adapt to the celestial order and even predict it. And that is why humanity's current obsession with gender morphism indicates another incoming creation cycle. We can sense and we instinctively know that we will be required to adapt and evolve to survive the next creation cycle. So the trauma of creation cycle 2 left us, humanity, with enough DNA memory to sense the next incoming creation cycle and the way that the world is behaving now, mankind overall, as a whole, not as a country, not as a religion, mankind as a whole, the way we're acting is indicative of impending cataclysm and change. Our grandchildren will experience things that we wouldn't want them to, but they're going to survive. I promise you they're going to survive. We're going to make sure of it. It was a little heavy at the end, but I want you guys to feel this truth that has been sort of hidden from all of us for a long time. And it needs to come out. We're ready for the truth now. I wonder if that was too sincere. But anyways, I'm done. Good night. I love you. I'll see you in the morning.